Do you want to know the worst part about MMA? They'll tell you it's the elbows, the blood, or the broken bones that make this game unforgiving.
Oh my goodness!
They'll tell you it's the knockouts, the 10-8 rounds, or the highlight reels. But the scariest and most dangerous opponent in this game isn't the man standing across from you. It's the clock. Because the truth is, Father Time is undefeated. He doesn't care who you are. He doesn't care how many wars you've survived, how many belts you've raised, or how many arenas screamed your name. He doesn't care about grit, legacy, or greatness. He just shows up, slowly, silently, and takes everything.
From mind to body, whatever those neurotransmitters are, they're not firing how they used to, and I'll give you like an example. Like I see the punch coming, I don't think about it. And it's like I kind of see the punch and then I'm like, oh snap, I got hit.
Your speed, your reflexes, your timing, your chin. One day you're flowing. You see everything before it happens. The next day, you're just a half second too slow and half a step behind. The hands don't snap like they used to. The legs don't fire. And you start to hesitate. The worst part is that you're still in there. You still remember who you were. You still feel like you've got it, but the body says no. Enough. Some fighters see it coming and wisely walk. Others, whether due to the money or the glory and the addiction that fighting becomes, they stay. And those are the ones who get eaten alive.
Fighting Business is one of my favorite new channels going right now.
Thank you to the Fighting Business. Absolutely amazing.
If you forgot, this is one of those things you really shouldn't ignore because out in the real world, getting eaten alive isn't just for fighters. Your personal info, address, phone number, and even your family's details is constantly being scraped and sold by data brokers online. That makes you a target for stuff like identity theft, scams, or even stalkers. That's why I use Delete Me. They scan hundreds of those shady broker sites, track down where your info is listed, and wipe it out for you. You even get a privacy report showing exactly what they found and deleted, which is honestly pretty wild to see. Big shout out to Delete Me for sponsoring this video. If you want to keep your info off the internet, check out my link in the description. Join deleteme.com/fightingbiz or use promo code fightingbiz for 20% off. Don't make it easy for these companies. And speaking of fighters who avoided getting eaten alive,
When you talk to fighters about all-time greats, there's one guy that everyone has on that list. That guy's BJ Penn.
y'all know what made BJ Penn so great back in his day? It wasn't just his skill set, his adaptability, or his insane willingness for combat. His superpower was his near peerless athleticism. He was strong, fast, impossible to hold down, and even harder to outstrike. He went up to 170 and beat Matt Hughes. Hell, at one point, BJ Penn was regarded as GSP's rival. That says a lot. But here's the part that stings. BJ Penn's fall didn't happen all at once. It was slow. So slow you almost didn't see it until one day you realized he hadn't won a fight in nearly a decade. The athleticism that once made him untouchable was gone. The speed that let him bounce out of danger. The base that made him impossible to take down. The core strength that made his guard a death trap. All eroded, piece by piece. Speed and agility are truly the first to go. They say power is the last thing to go, but what good is power alone? Also, by the way, if you like this Topuria shirt I'm rocking, links also below if you're curious. I mean, Topuria is probably the scariest featherweight to ever fight in the UFC, but there was a moment, or rather a small era, when Tyron Woodley was actually the most terrifying fighter in MMA.
He's got the power to hurt anybody.
See, I sent a pretty clear message. I knocked out J.R. Ron in 36 seconds, and I think I showed those guys what I was capable of.
Call him boring if you want to. Most did, but those who were in the cage with him saw him exactly as he was, ice cold and calculated.
Very hard to. Oh!
He didn't need to overwhelm you with volume or pressure you with pace or high output. He just needed you to be wrong. Once. That's all it took.
Tyron hits like a truck. That ground and pound was vicious. Look at my face. I'm stitched up.
One misstep, one overextension, one lazy kick, and your lights were out. That right hand wasn't just a weapon, it was a roadblock. Guys wouldn't throw their combos, wouldn't shoot takedowns, wouldn't even think too hard. They were paralyzed by the possibility that Tyron might fire. And when he did, it was sudden, violent, and final.
King is back. This is my throne. It's my division. I said it before. It's a Woodley weight division.
But then, he lost it. Not the power, but the athleticism, that lightning quick burst, that freak explosiveness that made him special. The stuff that made you hesitate even if you had the better technique. With that gone, Woodley also lost his confidence, that quiet belief he could end the fight at any second. Once that belief faded, so did the aura. He stopped pulling the trigger not because he was scared, but because some part of him knew it might not land.
Sometimes you have those fights in octagon where you feel like it's a bad dream. You want to throw punches, but they won't leave your face. You see the opportunities, but you don't take them.
And when you lose the trigger in MMA, it's over. You can't be a sniper if you're second guessing the shots. You can't be a knockout artist if you're staring at openings and doing nothing. You can't be Tyron Woodley if you're hesitating. He still looked like Tyron, still had the traps, the composure, the game face, but the cage doesn't care about aesthetics. The cage cares about timing, reactions, and instincts. And those were gone. What we saw instead was a man walking backwards for 15 and 25 minutes at a time, waiting, hoping, maybe this round, maybe this exchange, maybe this shot. But the shot never came. Some fighters lose their weapon, others lose their shield. And once that shield is broken, there's no putting it back together. Like for Frankie Edgar. If Tyron Woodley crumbled when his speed and explosiveness faded, Frankie kept going on. Grit, volume, and that legendary chin. He didn't rely on freak athleticism or knockout power, but on constant motion, endless combinations, and tireless scrambles. He was the smaller man in almost every fight, yet he broke bigger, stronger man with sheer will and heart. He got knocked down, sure, but he always got back up. Always.
The fucking heart that it took to come back from that.
Until he didn't. It was Brian Ortega who gave us the first warning. That uppercut was more than just Frankie's first career knockout loss. It was a bad omen because it wasn't just that Frankie got stopped. It was the way he went out. Sudden, brutal, final. For the first time, he didn't get back up. And from there, things changed. Pretty much all at once. The fundamental that made it all work, the base that let him push forward through fire was gone. And no one, not even Frankie Edgar, could fight like that for long. And that's the thing about durability. It doesn't fade gradually. It falls off a cliff. One moment you're surviving wars, the next you're waking up on the canvas, again and again, wondering where it all went wrong. Look at Tony Ferguson as another example. Everyone was on the bandwagon when he was on that legendary win streak, but let me refresh your memory a bit. Ferguson was hurt in practically all of those wins. Lando hurt him, Barbosa, Kevin Lee had him in trouble, Pettis had his moments, but it didn't matter because Ferguson, at least back then, was just different.
When I'm hurt, I love it. I love that feeling because it's real. Everything else, happiness could be fake, crying could be fake, but pain? Shit. That's real.
Frankie survived when he got knocked down, but Tony somehow grew in power and got stronger whenever you knocked him down. But even that doesn't last forever. Justin Gaethje was the turning point, the first man who didn't get overwhelmed, the first man who could match Tony's pace and punish him for it, over and over. He didn't get knocked out, but that fight took a piece of him, a big one. A few bad experiences later, and he was in there with Michael Chandler. That front kick didn't just knock Tony out, it erased him. The toughest man in the division, the man who once smiled through blood and pain, was unconscious before he hit the canvas. And when he woke up, you could see it in his eyes. Something had changed. Something was gone. For good. That's not a fall from grace. That's rewriting history. Because when Father Time finally catches you, he doesn't tap you on the shoulder. He hits you like a train.
I feel at this point in time in my life, I'm just barely hitting my prime.
So, those were depressing, each in their own way. But here's the most depressing one of them all, Anderson Silva. The other fell from grace, some slowly, some violently, but with Anderson, it was like watching the death of a superhero, and not in some grand climactic battle, but through a series of tiny painful cuts. Anderson didn't dominate with brute force or endless cardio. He didn't overwhelm you with pace or pressure. He didn't need to. He saw everything before it happened. He wasn't just the best striker in MMA. He was the cleanest, most terrifying counterpuncher the sport had ever seen. Anderson Silva did all that because he was blessed with the greatest gift of all, unreal reflexes. It was a different kind of athleticism compared to Penn and Woodley. They were athletes. Silva was a god. They were special. Silva was different.
Anderson, when he was in his prime, you would watch him, and you would watch him set guys up, and it's almost like he had cheat codes. Like, he could just see what they were doing.
And unfortunately, that's the part that goes first. The Chris Weidman fights were the turning point. The first one felt like arrogance catching up. The second one was cruelty. That leg break was more than a physical injury. It was cruel symbolism. The man who once danced through punches now couldn't even stand. And now, instead of accepting fate, he kept trying and hoping. Maybe just one more. Maybe the magic's still there. Maybe the timing will come back. And we hoped right alongside him. Please, MMA gods, just one more night. Rewind time for one more glorious display. But by the end, Anderson wasn't getting caught because he was showboating. He was getting caught because he couldn't see the shots coming the way he used to. Watching him lose felt wrong, not because he didn't belong, but because we knew what he used to be. He wasn't like the others. He didn't rely on toughness, he didn't brawl. His entire style, his entire greatness was built on something you can't hold on to forever. Perfect timing, perfect awareness, and perfect control. And when that fades, you're not Anderson Silva anymore. You're just a man standing in front of younger, faster, hungrier fighters, trying to rewind the clock in vain. But Father Time doesn't rewind, he only takes. So if you've ever wondered why the legends stay too long, why they don't just walk away when they're still on top, it's because fighters aren't built to hear the clock, not the one ticking outside and definitely not the one inside. When you've been in wars, raised belts, survived hell and back, you don't think the end will come for you. You believe you'll see it coming. You believe you'll know, but you don't. Because in this game, decline doesn't show up all at once. It warns you. Then it waits. Then one day, it's already taken everything. That's the real opponent, not the man across from you, not the crowd, not the critics. The real fight has always been against time. And time is ruthless. It doesn't knock you out in a single blow. It erodes you, one step, one snap, one missed beat at a time, until you're left staring in the mirror, wondering when exactly it all slipped away. You try to get back at it, and it erases you. And some fighters, as we've seen, get the worst of it. They don't just lose, they fade, piece by piece, until all that's left is the memory of who they were, and a highlight reel the new generation rewatches, wondering if it was even real. Because Father Time doesn't take belts, he takes greatness. And these men, they were his worst victims.